Hi, my name is Samir Shah, and I'm gonna be doing my research paper uh, d- over the topic of discussing the comparisons of the work of the ancient Greek authors and the works of William Shakespeare. So the title of my paper will be Greek Mythology versus Shakespeare, and that's simply due to the fact that I'm gonna be comparing the two and determining what similarities I can find as well as what differences. And my main driving question to my paper is to what extent do the works of the ancient Greeks compare and contrast to that work to the works of Shakespeare in the sense of writing style, theme, and influence. And in that, I plan to read, go through the books, some of the books we read, such as the Iliad and the Odyssey and the Aeneid, and from that determine some common themes and similarities at the same time while going through some of the works of William Shakespeare and finding some similarities and differences in writing styles and comparing and contrasting the two. And for my primary sources, I'll be using the Iliad and the Aeneid. And for my secondary sources, I'll be using one of them would be a database that I found that has all the works of William Shakespeare, at least some of the more famous plays and poems he's written. And in that, I will analyze his work and look for and like once again compare and contrast those to the works of the ancient Greek authors, as I said. So the goal of this research is to find similarities and differences in influence and style of the themes of writing between Shakespeare and the Greek authors. And to give a little background, Shakespeare was an ancient poet who wrote his works primarily in the late 1500s in England. His works were classified among three major categories, which are comedies, histories, and tragedies. And some of Shakespeare's greatest works were performed in theaters as plays and were later turned into movies during the modern day. This can also be said for some of the ancient Greeks. Examples of Shakespeare work that were turned into movies would include Julius Caesar, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, and Much to Do About Nothing, as well as several others. And an example of an ancient Greek poem that was turned into a movie would be Troy. Um, and ancient Greek, now on to ancient Greek authors. Ancient Greek authors such as Homer and Virgil wrote poems and books that are primarily around the themes of romance, hardship, religion, and sacrifice, as well as warfare. Their works were written in 16 AD, making them much older than Shakespeare work and from a different time period and a different country, which could also play an influence in how maybe some of the works were written. And to answer the similarity and differences question, it is vital to look at both primary and secondary sources. And as stated before, I will use my primary sources as an analysis of the works of the Greek authors and will look to find prevalent themes and similarities. And I will use my second sources to analyze the works of Shakespeare and to analyze the style and influence that are prevalent. And once I analyze both works, I will come together and find the similarities and differences between the two works and compare and contrast them throughout my paper. And so far during the research, I've found that there's the most similarities in Shakespeare's category of tragedies with the Greek mythology. Um, and both of the early Greek authors and Shakespeare focus on their work upon the theme of tragedies. This can be reflected around the nature that spend around each piece. And both authors use vivid details when going through bloodshed and war. Some differences, however, are Greek tragedies were told from based on specific events, and Shakespeare's were more thought out in his own mind and somewhat fictional in some senses. Um, and to conclude, it is fascinating to look at the similarities and differences comparing the works of the early Greek authors in comparison to Shakespeare and all their significant similarities, and it is interesting to ponder whether Shakespeare did get any exposure from the Greek tragedy. Thank you.